Welcome to the Alumni podcast series of IIM Calcutta. Joining us today is someone from the very first batch of IIM Calcutta's MBAEx program. With over 30 years of work experience, previously an executive director at PwC, he is currently working as a senior advisor at EY. It is my honor, my privilege to welcome Mr. Krishnakumar Sankaranarayanan. Welcome back to Joka.
Thank you so much, Shashank. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the current batch through this podcast. Thank you.
So one thing I'd like to really understand as to when you decided to pursue an MBA, what made you decide to choose the MBAEx program, considering it was the first batch that you were going to join? Did it feel like an opportunity? Did it feel like a risk? What were your feelings back then?
Yeah. So when I decided to do an MBA, I already had 15 years of work experience. So the options to do a regular 2A MBA probably did not exist for me. So when I started researching organizations and institutions to do an MBA, most of the options were in Europe. Right? There were the one-year programs at INSEAD. There was a program at IMT, programs at Oxford Said Business School, Cambridge, etc. Right? ISB was one option, but they had kind of indicated that I was not part of their intended cohort, given my work experience. IIM Ahmedabad had started the program 1 year ahead of IIM Calcutta, so that was one option, right, for me. But other than that, there were not too many options on the table for me, right? And therefore, when IIM Calcutta announced the start of their 1 year MBA program, it appeared to be more as an opportunity for me, right? Rather than any kind of risk. I don't think I had any thoughts about risk, but I'm sure that IIM Calcutta had a risk in getting people with different kinds of work experience into a new program, right? And trying to create a new program from scratch, for which there were few precedents in India, right? So it was almost like, IIM Calcutta was going back to its founding times, where in 1961, when they started an MBA program in India, it was the first of its kind. So they've been pioneers in that sense, even with the 1 year programs, especially for people with a broader work experience set. They've been amongst the first organizations or institutions in India. So to me, it didn't appear to be any risk at all. So it was more an opportunity, and of course a certain amount of trepidation, whether I would fit within what IIM Calcutta's expectations and the program's expectations would be, and so on and so forth.
Prior to joining the program, what was your vision, and how did MBAEx program help you reshape your journey?
So my experience coming into MBAEx was in healthcare. I spent about 15 years in healthcare across academic research roles and sales and marketing roles. Right. So coming in, so that was a time when private healthcare was growing in a big way. Lots of private hospitals, including Fortis, and of course Apollo was already there, but there were other groups which were looking to set up healthcare facilities. So to transition to a role in healthcare, business-oriented role in healthcare, was one of my objectives. Right? Getting into healthcare consulting was also a dream for me. And of course, going from a smaller organization that I had been part of to a larger organization in the healthcare space was the third option. So these were my kind of ideas getting into the program. And if I would if I go back and read my statement of purpose, right, I would probably have mentioned the same.
Do you still have?
I do have a purpose. Though the submissions of IIM Calcutta were in paper form, right? But I do have the essays and so on and so forth. So those were my kind of going in assumptions, right? But when I joined the program, and we had one very senior professor, Professor Leena Chatterjee. She is a professor of organizational behavior. She's since retired from IIM Calcutta, and she's now with the Birla School of Management in Mumbai. She and I had a discussion, and she very kind of in a very candid way pointed out that I would be a misfit if I were to look at roles in healthcare services. Right? She felt that my background in academic research, etc., would probably not would make me kind of feel at odds. Cognitive dissonance is the word she used, right? And therefore that I saw the truth in what she said, and therefore healthcare services kind of became less of a viable option for me, and healthcare consulting or sales and marketing roles in industry became my two viable options. And through campus, in fact, on around the same week, I got both opportunities. Okay, right? I got an opportunity with healthcare consulting in PwC. I also had an option with Johnson & Johnson. Right? These two options were open to me. And the opportunity with PwC came first. And since it was my also a dream to get into consulting, I chose that. So that's my the way my career choices evolved after the MBA program.
And then you ended up staying at PwC for how long?
I stayed with them for 13 years. Joined them as what we call managing consultant, and then progressed to the role of executive director in the health industries team. Was part of the team which almost set up the health industries practice, which was a way for PwC to move away or move into industry-led consulting, right? And so that provided an opportunity for me. Predominantly worked on the product side of healthcare, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, biotech, etc. Worked in commercial strategy as well as supply chain. Towards the later part of my time at PwC, also worked with in public health in a big way, both on core public health issues, on health system strengthening, etc., but also on public health supply chains and how an integral component of healthcare services they are.
Coming back to the classroom setting that you were talking about, you said you were working for 15 years before coming. So, any memory that you have of your first class, or how did it feel like when you were going to get back to the classroom after 15 years of working?
So this was the classroom, and this was my seat where I sat for almost 11 months in the program. The PGPX program was a new program that IIM Calcutta had launched, and it had been many years since they launched a new program. So we were kind of almost like new kids on campus, right? I mean, kind of outgrown kids, but kids nevertheless, right? So we were treated with a lot of love and affection by the system, right? And they went out of the way to accommodate our requests and our, needs in some form or shape. So they were very kind and cooperative. On the teaching side as well, a lot of the teachers were also having their first experience of doing classroom programs for people with work experience. Of course, they had taught in MDPs and so on and so forth, but the cohort was, it's not like a full-time program. So they also, I think, had to do a lot of adaptation as to how they would engage with the class and how they would structure the assignments and how do they teach the cases and so on and so forth. So I think more than us, right, this is something that I've always felt, right, while we had to do a personal adaptation, right, from roles in industry to being in a class. The first term was very difficult, and there was a lot of transition was difficult for many people. But I think the system around us also, had its own challenges and adaptations that it needed to make. So I think it was a collaborative effort of everybody involved that we as a batch were able to complete our course and get placed and so on. But also over the years, the program's adaptation and the way it has evolved is also because of this collaboration that has been the hallmark of the MBAEx program.
Any particular subject that you were interested in, and that's something that has been close to you even now?
Every topic, right? There are fond memories of every course. And since yesterday and today, I've met a lot of faculty that have taught us. And it was good to relive certain memories of being in their classes and attending their lectures and, being a participant in their, teaching and, research and so on and so forth. So, there are many, I would certainly recall some of our earliest classes, the foundational classes. We had a course in foundational mathematics, just taught by Professor Nag, Bodhiprata Nag. So I met him this afternoon, and I was recalling that his was the foundation for us, because a lot of people, a few people in our batch did not have a mathematics background. So it was his approach to kind of teach us some of the basics. And Professor Sagata Ray, he taught us the very first lecture was on case methods. Going global was the case study. I remember that. He taught us how to do case methods, probability and statistics. Professor Rahul Mukherjee, one of the finest lecturers and teachers from IIM Calcutta, he's got his own fan club and so on. So early years, right, and every other course has some or the other, I would say, happy memories. Information systems, Professor Sanjeev Vaidya, he taught us some of the more fundamental courses. Economics was a big thing. We had, I think, then and now some of the finest faculty in economics, everything from micro to macro to India and the world economy. And Professor Mrityunjay Mohanty, who retired last year, a very distinct professor for his teaching methods and so on. So every course, right, has its own operations, again, mathematically very sound. And I remember we had to do matrix inversion by hand, right? Without any Excel and tools and so on and so forth. So a lot of those foundational courses, I think, was very valuable for us. And then for electives, we also had the opportunity to be taught by a lot of global faculty, right? That helped us, get exposed to a different way of engagement and so on and so forth. I mean, it's difficult to pick one memory, but I think there are just too many.
And you've mentioned quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, there are many, and there's a lot more that I could have, it's been 18 years, but I'm sure that there are a lot more instances that would come to mind.
So, if, hypothetically speaking, if you were to, go back to the day one, relive your MBAEx journey, what is the thing that you would want to do differently?
So sometimes in the MBAEx program, right, given the pace of the program and the number of contact hours that we had, right, it was significantly higher than what is there now. Okay, right? We had almost the same number of contact hours as a 2-year program, right? So which meant that the assignments and the workload in terms of presentations or assignments and so on and so forth, we had to kind of divide the workload amongst ourselves, right? Sometimes, so that opportunity to pick certain topics that we would focus on, sometimes it's just done by consensus, right? Maybe that we could have done it in a slightly better way, but I don't think I would have done anything foundationally different. The major difference that I see then and now is the understanding of technology, right, and its role in business. Today, it's very hard to think about any business which doesn't have a major role for technology, right? So that is something that I would certainly have leveraged in the sense that we had more than half of our batch was from a tech background, right? I would certainly have engaged with them more to understand the nuances of technology and its role in business more than I did, during the course of our 11 months.
What is the one skill that you got when you were doing your program and you still use it? If you would pick one skill.
It's a kind of an offbeat. I think one of the things that I've realized is that the skill that is most relevant as you rise within organizations is people management. Right? And on campus, I think there is a lot of emphasis on what one would call hard skills, right? Mathematical modeling or operations tools or strategy development tools and so on. But I think there is not as much of an emphasis on understanding how organizations work and how you can manage teams of different sizes. How do we build consensus? How do we do negotiations? I mean, I know it's popular to call them as soft skills, but they're anything but soft, right? They are actually life skills. So I think that maybe an elective or two in soft skills may have been a better way for us to prepare ourselves, especially for more senior roles in industry.
Are you still in touch with your batchmates?
I mean, of course, with WhatsApp, it's become easier. But it's also true that, everybody has their own lives. So we don't get to meet physically that often, but we stay connected and we meet in small groups and, so on and so forth. So, yeah, very much part of, a community.
Just some questions. What would be the one word if you were to describe your batch? What would be the one word you would choose?
The batch took its responsibilities as being the founding batch very seriously. Right? So, because the role that our batch had was to make the program known in industry as well. Right? And then to be able to position the participants or the students of the program for potential roles in industry and so on. So having understood that responsibility, and we very quickly realized that the knowledge in the community, or when I say community, it's the community of recruiters, about what the 1-year program entailed was not there. So we actually took upon ourselves the job of almost creating awareness about the program also. I think, therefore, if there's one word, I would say we call ourselves as pioneers. Right? Our badge is called IMC PGTX Pioneers. I think we took the responsibility of the word pioneer very seriously.
I think that's very happy.
In hindsight, yes. I sometimes felt that it was better for grandiose word to call ourselves as pioneers. It's a word which typically others should use for us. But if I look back, we have justified the responsibilities which come with the word pioneer.
Any book or podcast series that you recommend?
So, if I were to choose Indian podcasts, right? I particularly like the podcast called The Seen and the Unseen. Amit Verma hosts that. It's a pretty long form podcast. It is, a great conversationalist. He chooses topics which are very, it's not a very subject specific, kind of or a sector specific kind of a topic. It multi-factor. I personally love listening to it, though it's very long and I have to break it into 3 or 4 sessions. Globally, I like the All In podcast. I think that looks at technology and business and so on. That's something that I like listening to. In terms of books, there have been many, but a couple of books which I've liked. One is a book called Range, David Epstein. So what that book talks about is, there's this common notion that specialists practice one skill a lot, right? There's this famous quote which is attributed to Bruce Lee, right? He says, "I'm not worried about somebody who does 10,000 kicks." He says, "I'm worried about the guy who does one kick 10,000 times." Right? So that's the common notion of specialists. They are very good at what they do. They practice that one skill. But I think this book actually says that it's not the case. People actually have a broad range of skills that they possess. And from that broad range of skills, so you can think about A.B.D. Williams, right? You can think about any others. You can look at Kapil Dev, for example, right? So they are able to look at a few sports that they would have potentially excelled in, right? But they may have chosen a particular sport for a variety of reasons, and it's true of any field, right? And some of the best scientific minds, for example, have an art side to them and vice versa, right? All this kind of stuff we've seen. So I think that's a good book, and the way it translates into whatever careers today, right? Is everybody talks about a T-shaped skill set, which is you have a horizontal, a broad understanding, but you also have a specific focus on one area, right? Now it's since evolved into an M-shaped or an N-shaped if you need to have maybe 2 or 3 specializations and then across. So I think that kind of complements the particular book is a reflection of what we are seeing, right? That you need to have a combination of breadth and depth, so to say. That is one book, and I personally been quite interested in organizational culture. A book called Reculturing by Melissa Degner. Okay. It gives a very practical definition of cultures and how you can link organizational values to behaviors. Because everybody on paper every organization has a great organizational culture on paper. But what fails is how the behaviors reflect the values that the organization states, and how the organizational processes and practices complement the behaviors. It's a very operational way of understanding culture. It is very difficult, it's a very abstract word. But that book has given me a very way to translate an abstract idea into something that I tried to do it in the nonprofit that I headed for a couple of years. We essentially use that same framework to design some kind of organizational behaviors in terms of do's and don'ts and practices and processes and so on and so forth. So kind of a practical tool, which I kind of like.
Any final message to the current batch of MBAEx?
not as much as a message, but I think this 1 year, I think is a great learning opportunity, right? And we learn, I think, from obviously the lectures and the curricular components, the international immersion, the field visits, the live projects, everything. I think there's a lot more to learn from each other, and I think this is an opportunity which is probably going to be there. That you have a peer group, your group of 90. So each person therefore has a cohort of 89, right? Which is very bad. To find a group of 89 people for whom you're peers, right? And therefore there's a lot to learn, and this environment, kind of facilitates that opportunity for peer-to-peer learning.
Definitely.
Right? And I think, I don't know about you guys, but, for me, there is no way I would have made 39 new friends in here. This is the only place where that would have been possible. Very true. It's very difficult. And you're observing people from up close and personal. There is very little. You can't, your image of yourself, right, to the world around you. You can, but it's different, right, from the way people observe you in a classroom. You might come across as the most cooperative, but if you don't exhibit that behavior in the class, your persona that you've built up in the corporate world is not who you really are, right? So I think this kind of gives an opportunity to be a peer in a group which is diverse group. And remember, everybody here is an achiever. They've all come through the same selection process. They've all excelled in their respective careers. They come from different life experiences. I think some of them have global experience, some of them have worked in PSU, some of them have worked in private sector organizations. So the diversity of experience and the opportunity for learning, therefore, is quite immense. I think that would be, and this is not something that you can do anywhere else, right? So that would be my suggestion to the batch. I hate using the word advice. I am at the age where advice of any kind, and especially unsolicited advice, is not welcome. But that would be my suggestion to the batch. I hate using the word advice. I am at the age where advice of any kind, and especially unsolicited advice, is not welcome. But that would be my suggestion.
All suggestions are welcome from my side. It's been a pleasure interacting with you. Thank you so much for giving us time. Thank you so much for the learnings that you've shared in the last 2 days. I say this with as much honesty as possible that the last 2 days were not enough at all to get the learnings from me. So we would request you to keep coming back. 23rd of August is Aniatis, so we would request you to come there as well. It was a pleasure interacting. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming over and sharing your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shashank. It was wonderful speaking with you, and we hope that for you and for your classmates as you embark on a year, a transformational years.
Thank you so much. We should be coming up with more such content. Do subscribe, follow us. Thank you.